and we're coming out of this season of dealing with family court, and it's draining our batteries, and we're feeling disconnected. And then all of a sudden, even though that season sort of ended, I remember we were just kind of looking at each other like, who are you?
We definitely didn't have the tools we needed to invest in our relationship and to stay connected and to talk about hard stuff. And we ended up hurting each other a lot and feeling dissatisfied and disconnected.
Yeah, it was pretty icky. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us today. We are always grateful to be spending time with you and you spending time with us each week. You know, honestly, this whole podcasting thing really wouldn't be much fun if no one was listening, would it?
No, I don't want to listen to you.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Well, you know, we'd love to stay connected with you. So if you haven't followed us over on Facebook or Instagram yet, we really encourage you to head over and search for Blended Family Breakthrough right now and just start following us. We love dropping some tips and reminders of old episodes along the way, as well as making sure you're up to date on the episodes we drop that are new. So it's a great way for you to stay up to date and to stay connected with us. So we'd love to have you join us over there on social. And hey, thanks in advance for connecting with us.
Absolutely. Now, at the time that we're dropping this episode, we've entered into the new year, and Valentine's Day is coming up quick.
It is on the way. That's right.
As I say that, you might be thinking, ugh, that cheesy holiday again. I wish we could just skip it all this year. Or you might be experiencing just the opposite. You're excited and can't wait for Valentine's Day. Wherever you're at, whether you're looking forward to celebrating or not, chances are your level of excitement is a direct correlation to the state of your romantic relationship. That makes sense.
Yeah. We've both been on both ends of that spectrum, haven't we?
We
honey?
have.
Yeah. You know, we've experienced things like candlelit dinners, and we've exchanged some gifts and cards filled with sweet little affirmations of our love and all of that. And there's also been some years where we just kind of dreaded Valentine's Day, right? We downplayed it. We didn't really want to engage.
Right.
And yes, our level of participation and anticipation and excitement around Valentine's Day was directly correlated with the health and the connection that we were experiencing in that season of our relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So regardless of where you're at this year, we believe it's important to continually and honestly examine how your relationship is going.
Yeah.
And this means identifying your strengths as a couple and areas where you may need to improve. So over the next few weeks, we'll be exploring marriage and romance.
All right. I like that.
Today, we're focusing on a concept found in Ron Deal's book, The Smart Step-Family Marriage, where he unpacks some interesting research that reveals 5 specific types of couples.
Right.
The findings are based on how couples communicate, resolve conflict, and manage their finances, as well as their parenting partnership, and aspects of leisure time, sexuality, friends and family, role sharing, and spiritual beliefs.
Yeah. The interesting research conducted by Life Innovations has identified distinct attributes, which, when combined as strengths and weaknesses, they represent unique characteristics of married couples. And when considered as a whole, these combined attributes describe a couple's relational style more fully than when the researchers examined just the individual attributes themselves, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So that means we're kind of combining all this stuff and realizing, oh, the different combinations create 5 distinct styles.
For couples.
Yeah. So we want to dive in and explore these 5 types of couples and the specific relational styles that they tend to exhibit. Now, as we do this, we want you to keep in mind that we're not suggesting at all that if you identify with like one style or another, that you're just stuck there. It's not a label saying, oh, that's who you are and that's who you'll be forever.
No.
Honestly, we've navigated different seasons in our marriage, and along the way, we've experienced all 5 of these styles in one season or another. Would you agree with that, honey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? So we want to really emphasize this isn't fixed. It can actually be fluid. Okay. And as a team, as a couple, you can actually change your style, but you have to do a little work to get there.
Right.
So what we're trying to do today is help you just understand where you're at right now so that you can take an intentional step toward growth to the style that you'd really like to be.
Right. Right.
So we want to be able to check out these 5 styles. And I just want to give you a heads up. They're going to kind of degrade as we go along, right? We're going to start with a style where everybody's going, yeah, that's who we want to be.
Right, the ideal.
We're going to get down to that kind of bottom where, boy, that's tough.
Less than ideal.
So hang in there with us because all it is just building awareness, all right? So let's check out these 5 styles. And honey, what's the first style?
The first style is the vitalized couple.
That sounds great.
It does. Overall, this type of marriage represents the happiest couples, and it's reflective in the fact that they have the highest satisfaction scores on most aspect of their relationship and a low divorce rate compared to the other couple types.
Okay.
The strengths of vitalized couples include good conflict resolution and communication skills, as well as healthy sexuality and shared spiritual beliefs. These couples are intentional around personal growth and determined to do what it takes to create a healthy dynamic in their stepfamily.
Yeah.
Vitalized couples are unified in how they spend their time, money, and energy, and they're willing to make sacrifices on behalf of each other's children. A strong commitment to their marriage carries these couples through challenging seasons.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't have challenges, that they've just learned how to navigate them.
Yeah, and it's important to note that vitalized couples don't always possess these strengths in the beginning of their relationship, but over time they learn to respect each other's unique personalities and their contributions. Like that's super true for us, right? You know, it took 15, 16, 17 years together before I would say we reached this style, and it took a ton of work, right? But I think over the last handful of years, we've been experiencing this style more than any. What would you say, honey?
I would agree with that. I mean, it's still imperfect. Like we're always going to be a work in progress, and all of the progress is imperfect progress.
Right.
But yeah, I would definitely agree that we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of shared value. I think the fact that we get to serve couples together, it gives us kind of a shared mission. It's great that we're here now that we're empty nesters.
That helps.
I love that. That does help, right? Because kids are kind of up and launched, and while we still have concerns over them and we're parents still involved and all that, we still have a real shared vision for where we want to go as a couple and where we hope to see us all be as a family.
Yeah. I think an interesting part of this style is that they've learned how to navigate each other's personality differences. And that was huge for us.
Yes.
That took a long time because on any personality assessment, we are at opposite ends of the continuum. We are wired so differently. And that caused a lot of conflict in our marriage because we really did spin our wheels quite a bit trying to change each other into copies of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so understanding each other's unique wiring, and then actually at this point we appreciate each other's differences and we are able to honor that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think any couple can work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is we've met a lot of couples along the way who are actually quite similar in their wiring, but they run into just as big of problems. They're just different problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true.
So where you and I are radically different. And by the way, now I'm at a stage where I actually kind of like that you're different than me.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
I used to not like that, but I think I'm kind of boring. So you kind of spice it up for me a little bit once in a while. But yeah, we do have to really learn to appreciate that and understand each other at a deeper level. I wonder, like we recognize in this style that it does come with time. It's pretty much impossible to start here.
Yeah.
And so if you're on the front end, the great part about recognizing this is that even though you're enjoying this, like maybe honeymoon season, hopefully, if you're listening right now, this gives you a vision for where you want to head over the coming decade or more.
Right.
Right. And this is such a good goal. Right?
Yeah. And when you hit those bumps in the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've hit plenty of those.
Absolutely. Yeah. So speaking of those kind of early years, I think this next style, so that was the vitalized couple. The next style is called the harmonious couple. And I bet that we kind of started out here, at least for a little while, right?
I think so.
Similar to vitalized couples, many harmonious couples are actually very happy and they kind of consider each other best friends, right? They've got many relationship strengths, but not quite as many as vitalized couples do. Harmonious couples are generally satisfied with many areas of their relationship, including things like household tasks that each partner is responsible for, their sexuality and rhythm of that, spiritual beliefs, communication. However, they might struggle to bring their different like parenting styles into cooperation, and they might struggle to work together in leading their blended family as a team. They might also have some trouble managing the tension that gets stirred up by a former spouse whose parenting approach has definitely created some complications right here in our home. Right. So I don't know if that resonates with you who are listening, but I would say that's probably an area where we kind of started. Overall, things were pretty good, but there were some things we were tripping over that we were really struggling with. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Parenting definitely became an issue pretty early on. I think our first fight ever was around Annika's bedtime, if I recall.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to back that up. Our first real fight ever was when we did our premarital work and we were doing an assessment, and you saw one of my answers about parenting on that assessment. And that was what actually triggered it. So same subject, just a different day.
No, it was the same day and same subject because the parenting question you had answered was about Annika's bedtime.
Okay,
as I remember it. I don't know. It was almost 23 years ago.
Yeah, we're getting old. What's the deal with that? Yeah.
But anyway, parenting was definitely a struggle for us. And it took years for us to become effective parenting partners.
Yeah.
And that's very common in blended couples.
Now, those who are listening, I know you're absolutely shocked that it's parenting that would have caused an early challenge. But hey, you know what? In blended families, we all kind of get that. I know I say that in jest. Yeah. Yeah, I think that we probably experienced that early on. And maybe we've experienced little bits of that. And if we think of all this as a progression, maybe before kind of the season right before we've reached this more vitalized piece where we are right now, we probably had some of that kind of come back around.
Yeah. And we hear couple after couple after couple say things to us like, oh, when it's just the two of us, it's so great. We get along so well. We're so connected. Life is so good. And then the kids come for visitation and it all falls apart. We can't communicate. We're walking around on eggshells. We're fighting. I mean, it's parenting is a huge challenge.
For sure.
But yeah, that even the word harmonious, we're harmonious until the kids show up, right?
Yeah. That's definitely an indicator of a harmonious couple. So that might be where you are. And that means we just need to do a little bit of work of, okay, how can we hold on to that happiness, hold on to that joy, hold on to that connection, even when the kids are home? That's what we really want. That'll help us take another step forward into a better style.
Yeah. And even when a former spouse stirs up some stuff in our home, that's another big one that we dealt with off and on over the years.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. So we've got this vitalized couple. We've got the harmonious couple. What's the next one, hon?
The next one is the conventional couple. These couples are moderately happy, but have many weak aspects in their marriage. Despite their determination to stay together, they remain dissatisfied with quite a few aspects of their marriage.
Yeah.
The external dynamic of their marriage, such as raising children and their religious convictions, keep the conventional couple together despite only moderate levels of happiness. Their strengths include shared parenting, strong connections with friends and families, division of roles, and spiritual beliefs. However, when it comes to the internal dynamics of marriage, these couples report dissatisfaction with the personality of their spouse, and they have poor communication and conflict resolution skills. But despite the fact that more than half of conventional couples are not happy and over 1/3 have considered divorce, this couple type has the lowest rate of divorce because they are committed to staying married no matter what.
Okay.
From the outside, the marriage of a conventional couple looks better than it really is on the inside. They tend to operate more like roommates with a common cause, and that's children and church.
Interesting. Okay. So we said that you and I have experienced all 5 of these. Tell a little story or share a little bit about maybe this season where we were just hanging on to this conventional piece. What do you think?
I would say we experienced this type of couple style during that 3-year period that we were battling with my ex in the family courts. That was a very stressful time for us, and we kind of put our relationship on the back burner.
Yep.
Because we had lots of things we had to focus on, and on the surface, we were holding it all together.
Sure.
But underneath it all, we were really struggling.
Yeah.
And I don't know so much if it was our personalities, like the description says, although we had that for many years.
Yeah.
But I think it was more so around how we were just dealing with stuff.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think, there's these seasons, and maybe as you're listening, you're relating to this. There's these seasons where it's kind of noble to put our energy and our time and our focus into these things that we can't avoid, right? Like for us, it was that, like you just said, that season and being in the family court, we needed to stand firm in that battle. It was important. And if you want to know more about that, we tell it in all kinds of different ways throughout the podcast.
We were aligned on that.
Yeah, we were. And that kind of fits the name of this type, right? It's conventional. Like, okay, we know we need to get this done, and we're just going to get it done.
The common cause.
But underneath it all, I mean, I've often said that, we spent countless nights going to bed hugging the opposite sides of the bed.
Yeah.
Right. And very separated,
disconnected,
and tension and disconnected. We weren't misaligned in what we wanted or what our goal was, but we were highly disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a tough season. But again, there was a partnership there.
Yeah, we were determined to get through it.
Exactly. Our faith remained the same, and that kept us focused. Our goals remained the same, and that kept us focused.
We had strong support of family and friends around us, helping us.
But in general, we just weren't connecting.
Yeah, I think we were both struggling with a lot of
sure.
deep emotions that were hard to talk about. I was really struggling.
Yeah, and that was a few years. That we
it was long.
Through that. And we had little bright, shiny moments along the way, but it was a few years.
Yeah. And we had a child coming to our home that was really struggling, and so that took a lot of energy as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now, coming out of that season, I think is when we really, because we were so depleted, that was when we slipped into this next style, which is the conflicted couple. So we moved from conventional couple over to conflicted couple.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these couples are just unhappy most of the time. And that was definitely us.
Yeah, we were pretty miserable.
Yeah. Conflicted couples disagree on so many topics and have very few relational strengths. It's not surprising that 73% of individuals in these marriages have considered divorce. And in one longitudinal study, we find that 53% did divorce. So often these conflicted step couples date for a short time before they get married, and they just kind of hop in, and we kind of did that, right? And sometimes this occurs before they've grieved and healed from the loss of their first family.
Right.
So if you're kind of in that dating phase, that's an area where we really want to explore. Have I really healed and grieved from the loss of that first family?
Yeah.
Now, when the initial passion and infatuation kind of wanes, right? We all experience that on the front end, but then it starts to lower a little bit. They end up becoming intent on changing each other.
Yeah, and we went through that as well.
Absolutely. This is kind of that personality type we were talking about earlier. Now, the issue could be around money or sex or each other's kids, the former spouse, but they just tend to find themselves at odds and struggling due to areas of weakness in their marriage, in their relationship, in that connection. So you can imagine we're coming out of this season of dealing with family court, and it's depleting, it's draining our batteries, and we're feeling disconnected. And then all of a sudden, even though that season sort of ended, I remember we were just kind of looking at each other like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like where'd my wife go? And you're going, where'd my husband go?
Yeah.
Right?
We definitely didn't have the tools we needed to invest in our relationship and to stay connected and to talk about hard stuff.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for us.
Yeah. Communication and conflict resolution was greatly lacking.
And emotional regulation.
Yeah, for sure.
We just did not have control over how we reacted when we were experiencing pain. And we ended up hurting each other a lot.
Yeah.
As I recall during that season, and feeling dissatisfied and disconnected.
Yeah, it was pretty icky. And pretty shortly after that, then we slipped into the next one for a season. I think probably less than a year.
Yeah.
But there was a season there where for 5 or 6 months, I bet we were really at the bottom. And that's what this fifth style is.
Yeah, that's the devitalized couples.
So opposite end of the spectrum from vitalized. Yeah.
These couples are extremely unhappy. They need to improve nearly every aspect of their relationship.
Yep.
Communication between them consists of sarcasm, accusation, and criticism, which of course ignites defensiveness, hurt, and anger.
Check. We did all of that.
We were there. Devitalized couples might tend to shield themselves from the negativity of each other, and as a result, they avoid each other. Even though this means functioning separately as parents and feeling isolated as partners.
Yep.
90% of devitalized couples have considered divorce, even though it may not be what they really want. It just seems to be the only way to find some relief from their painful reality.
Yeah, that was totally us in that really challenging season.
And we did consider divorce.
Yeah, we talked about it a few times. What's interesting to me about that season, like I remember, you talk about that disconnection. I think we weren't just hugging opposite sides of the bed. I remember I was sleeping out in our detached office many nights, just sleeping in the chair. Yeah. And you didn't care. You were like, I don't care if he's coming to bed or not.
And talk about a Valentine's Day that we were dreading. We couldn't even stand to go out on a date night together, let alone celebrate a day of, hearts and roses and love. Oh my gosh. No way.
You used the word cheesy about Valentine's Day earlier. Yeah. We definitely saw it that way.
Like, skip it.
Yeah. Now we dipped into that for, like I said, maybe 5 or 6 months over the course of our 23 years. And it was a rough season. What do you think helped us actually do something different, honey?
We were sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think for me, it was this realization of, am I doing everything I can to save this marriage? Because if I'm just going to sit back and let it crumble and let it fall apart, how am I going to feel later? Yeah. Am I going to look back and think, man, I did everything I could to save that marriage and to hang in there and to grow and to learn, or not?
Yeah.
Am I going to have some regret over, I could have done more, or I kind of just let it slip away.
Yep.
So I had to think through that because it was a turning point. It was either, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
You got to get in and fight for your marriage or you're going to lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I think for me, it was a point where I looked at myself in the mirror and I had to say, man, what is it like to be on the other side of me? and it was rough. I had to stop believing that I couldn't change unless you changed. And so I just had to start taking responsibility for myself and really seeing the ugly parts of what was going on inside. And I had to go get professional help in order to do that. And I think as I started doing that and you started taking ownership, saying, well, am I really going to be able to look back and say I've done everything I can? And then you entered into your own kind of healing journey. Right. All of a sudden, we started seeing like, oh, wait a second. Maybe there's something here that we both really believe in and we want. And so we dipped into that for 5 or 6 months. It was really, really rough. It was definitely the deepest valley of our marriage, of our relationship. And then we just did this little kind of uptick and we kind of got back to not to be vitalized, but we kind of got back to just being conflicted. We weren't devitalized anymore. We were like, okay, we're just conflicted and we can live there for a little bit. And then for quite a while, I think we just vacillated between being conflicted and conventional, right? We're like, okay, this is rough, but we believe in some stuff. And so we're going to get through it. And then it's like, man, I don't know if I like you very much. And then we kind of battle through some of that. And then, well, wait, we believe in some things. So let's get after it. And we probably did that for a couple of years.
Yeah. And there was some light at the end of the tunnel. We started to see bits of growth and improvement.
Yeah.
For both of us individually, and we started spending a little bit more time together. That wasn't walking around on eggshells and in a big battle with each other.
Right. Yeah. And after a while, we finally got a little bit of liftoff. We had lots of people rooting us on and that were for us. We surrounded ourselves with some positive community. And pretty soon we found ourselves kind of back in that harmonious stage. And we were headed toward revitalization. And then when we got this calling to really invest in others and we started getting kids launched into adulthood, I think we really started going, okay, I think we're crossing this line over into vitalized. Yeah, definitely. So we've lived through it all. And, it's really interesting to look back on all of that and then kind of read about this research that reveals these 5 styles that couples fall into: the vitalized, the harmonious, the conventional, the conflicted, and the devitalized. Right. And realize, oh my gosh, that's been our journey.
We've lived it all.
That's incredible, right? And maybe as you've been listening, you've been able to actually identify where you're kind of at right now as a couple. And so let's think about that for a second. Why is this kind of insight, what you've just realized, why is that so important? Right. What do you think, honey?
Well, it's great that we can have this perspective. As each of these couple types demonstrate, there are a variety of marriages, and not all relationships are comprised of the same relationship strengths and weaknesses. There's different combinations.
Yep.
Knowing your particular combination is important to discovering where you are now and how to grow your relationship moving forward.
That's right.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Remember earlier I said it's not fixed, it's fluid. And so even if you've identified in one of those tough ones, right, devitalized, conflicted, conventional, it's okay because you have opportunity to move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In his book, Ron gives some examples of how this works. He says harmonious couples can build on their moderate strengths, such as spiritual beliefs and sexuality, whereas conventional couples need mostly to improve their communication patterns and problem-solving strategies, right? Now, vitalized couples should celebrate their strengths and affirm each other. We're kind of doing that now, but they should be careful not to take the future or each other for granted. So vitalized couples still have work to do.
Yeah, still have to be intentional.
Yeah. Now, if we're conflicted or devitalized, those couples need to honestly face the deficits in their relationship. We just got to be real, right? They may have been blind to them somewhere in the past, but you know what? Right now, it's time to acknowledge it, face it head on, and probably reach out for some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron goes on to say that understanding the different types of marriage can help you to identify what type of marriage you ultimately want.
Right.
Now, you might just assume that your partner wants a vitalized relationship, right? Isn't that the goal?
Oh, well, of course.
But what we've learned is that not everyone is willing to take the emotional risks required to build a vitalized marriage.
Right.
And this might seem counterintuitive. Like, doesn't everyone want a great marriage?
Of course. Yeah.
Well, the answer is yes, they do, until building a great marriage requires more of them than they are comfortable giving at this point in time. We've got to remember that blended couples come in with painful pasts and a whole lot of emotional baggage that can create challenges, which is why this kind of work needs to be approached with empathy and with care.
Yep.
The process and progress needs to honor both partners.
Absolutely.
And this is something we definitely dealt with over the years as well.
Yeah. And we need to keep our expectations in line, right? We're not going to move from devitalized to vitalized in weeks or months.
No.
Right? Sometimes if we're really in that devitalized like we were in that season, we needed to set our sights more on just conflicted or conventional, because taking giant leaps just doesn't work. It creates more disappointment. It creates more challenges. So we've got to take our steps. Now, as you consider where you're at as a couple, we encourage you to honestly assess your goals at this point in time, right? 12 years ago, when we were devitalized as a couple, it would have been totally unrealistic, like I just said, to become vitalized anytime soon.
Right.
That would have been an unrealistic goal, and we would have become overwhelmed and ended up pretty discouraged.
Oh, yeah.
But it was realistic for us to just identify some doable steps forward, which for us meant getting some therapeutic support. And that helped us to embrace some accountability and forgiveness along the way. So that way we could recover from some of those hurts we'd actually inflicted on each other and just get a little bit of, I guess, a fresh start.
And that was our first step, and it took time, it took energy and intentional effort. The next step was learning better ways to regulate our emotions and communicate with each other, and then grow in our ability to problem solve and work as a united team.
Yep.
It actually took us about 7 or 8 years to gradually go from devitalized to vitalized.
Right.
And we had to move at a pace we were each able to handle. And we still aren't totally there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's still some aspects of our marriage we're currently working on. And I imagine that'll be going on
for a while.
Yeah, of course. And it's okay, because we've learned that this is worthy work. And the payoff is huge and well worth it, as we're now getting to enjoy.
Absolutely. So if you've realized that your relationship falls into maybe the conflicted or even devitalized style, we really want to encourage you to reach out for some help. That might be your Valentine's gift to each other this year. Find a counselor, a coach, or a mentor that's going to support your next steps forward, and make sure they have experience or training in blended dynamics. If you'd like to find out more about our coaching program, we can certainly leave a link in the show notes where you can schedule a free coaching call with us. We're here to help you to assess your next step as a couple and move forward in really reaching those goals.
Absolutely. And, you know, if discovering your couple type has brought some discouragement for you, remember that you can change. This is where you are today. Tomorrow can be a different story, and we're living proof of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And we also encourage you to check out Ron's book, The Smart Stepfamily Marriage, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And Ron says that the purpose of this book is to help couples to focus more on their strengths than on their dissatisfying aspects of their marriage. He's found that how much a couple focuses on strengths versus problems actually changes things over time.
Yeah, we've certainly experienced that as well.
Yeah.
And of course, it's common in the early stages of a relationship, people naturally think about and notice all the things they like about their partner, those positive aspects. And they tend to overlook the more negative qualities or regard them as kind of no big deal, right?
Right, absolutely.
This is the love is blind phenomenon.
I'm glad that worked out for me because I know love needed to be blind in order for you to marry me.
But over time, the blinders come off.
Yeah, that's true.
At that point, married couples tend to do the opposite. They begin focusing on the negative aspects of their partner and their relationship.
Yeah.
And not thinking as much about their strengths and those positive aspects.
Yeah, totally. I love this quote from Ron. He says, what you focus on will tend to gain importance and influence your perceptions. Focus impacts your couple relationship.
Absolutely.
Now, he's not saying that we should ignore unhealthy or destructive patterns in our relationship.
No.
He's just simply inviting you to adjust your attention toward what's going right rather than continually focusing exclusively on what's going wrong. Then and only then can you actually start to build a more vital and mutually satisfying relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a quote that goes something like, too many people miss out on the silver lining because they're expecting gold.
I like that.
And honey, I'm thankful we didn't miss out on our silver lining. And if you're listening, we hope you don't either. Hey, next week's episode will focus on one very important aspect of every couple relationship, and that's friendship.
Yeah.
We all want to be able to enjoy each other's company and genuinely say that, hey, honey, you're my best friend.
Absolutely. That's right. So we'll also talk a little bit about understanding and meeting our deepest needs, which are different for men and for women. So you certainly don't want to miss that. And, you know, as you prepare for Valentine's Day that's coming up, we just encourage you to think about where are you? If you're more toward that vitalized or harmonious couple, plan a celebration and go out and enjoy that.
Affirm your strengths.
That's right. If you're really struggling, I encourage you to talk about, hey, what are we going to do to move forward?
Right.
And that might be part of your Valentine's Day this year. Either way, we want you to have a great time and really take steps forward. So we can't wait to connect with you next week. But for now, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.